Welcome back to Rupert Cooks. I was a bit surprised at my last episode at how much consternation there was over creme caramel. A lot of people like my creme brulee a lot better, so I decided to make that this week. It's actually a little bit simpler. It travels well. You can serve it at your own house, anything like that. But let's get to it. Okay, so to start off, we are going to begin by steeping some orange zest in heavy cream in our saucepan. So we have 3 cups of heavy cream. Just going to put that right in. Then we are going to need the zest of 1 orange. I love these microplane zesters. They are fantastic for this because you can go over the orange like this, and it's going to collect it all up in here, and then you just scoot it right off into the milk. So I'm just going to go over the orange here. And we're zesting and zesting. It's so chipper. Zest the orange. You could probably use a lemon or something like that, but the orange is really sort of the more traditional flavor here. It is not something where you really want to use orange juice. I feel that the zest has a kind of distinctive taste from orange juice. It's a little bit sharper, a little bit, I don't know, maybe fresher tasting, but I've tried it and this really doesn't work as well with orange juice. You really have to just go ahead and buy an orange for its peel. And now my whole kitchen smells like orange here. So I'm going to put this on to bring it to a slight simmer, and then I'm going to throw the cover on it and let it steep for 5 minutes. Okay, so while our milk is steeping with the orange zest, I have 5 egg yolks in this bowl, and I'm going to add a half a cup of sugar, and then I'm going to whisk it. And I'm whisking it more to get the sugar into solution with the eggs than I am to add air bubbles, but you know that's going to happen anyway. But it's very interesting when you whisk egg yolks and sugar. They start out a dark yellow. Then as the sugar dissolves into them, they should get a brighter, sort of lighter yellow. And what we're going to be aiming for is having a certain thickness develop, so we get a thick strand, or thick, slowly falling ribbon off of our whisk. And then we're going to add in 2 teaspoons of vanilla. So let's get whisking. Okay, so this is the color when I've just started whisking, and I'm going to keep going, and it's going to be lighter by the end of this. Okay, and this is after about 10 minutes of vigorous whisking. You can see they're quite a bit lighter in color, and you can see it comes off in a wider, slower dripping ribbon. And as you whisk, you will find it gets quite a bit stiffer as you go along. Right now, after 10 minutes of whisking, I feel like I crush a Volkswagen with this hand. So that's about the stage you want to get to. I've preheated our oven to 350 degrees, and now I'm going to add our milk that's been steeping the orange peel, orange zest. So I'm stirring now, I'm not whisking, and I'm going really slowly, because this is all egg yolks in here, and it's very easy to scramble them if you add it too fast. And don't worry if you have any gook on the top of your milk, because we are going to be straining this later. Okay, so our milk has all been added very slowly to the egg yolks, and we haven't scrambled anything. So let's put in our 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Let's get that mixed in well. And now what we need to do is strain this and then get this into our little ramekins. All right, so let's strain this in. I want to point out that you want to be straining this into something like a large measuring cup, something with a spout, because you're going to be pouring it into these little ramekins, and it helps keep things from slopping all over the place. All right, so we're all strained, and let's get ready to pour this out. All right, so we're going to pour, and we're going to get this, I don't know, about a half cup each, but you need it to be fairly close to the top there. And the reason for that is we're going to bake these in the oven until they set up a little bit. Then we're going to cool them. Then we're going to put some sugar on top and hit it with a blowtorch. And if it is too far down in there, you're going to have problems with the blowtorch getting in there and sort of not looking that great. So you want them filled to, something like about a quarter of an inch from the top. And I'm going to get these all filled and we'll go from there. So I have my ramekins in the pan here, and then I've got pretty much as hot as it'll go tap water. And pour it in here a little bit more than halfway up the sides of the ramekins. So we're going to put these in the oven and let them bake for 30 to 45 minutes. You have to check them and take them out and let them cool. So our ramekins have been in the oven for about 35 minutes, and you can see that they're still pretty soft in the middle, which is about where you want it. Essentially, you don't want it coming off on your finger when you hit it and have a little bit of a rebound to it. So I'm going to take these out of the water, let them cool on the counter for about 10 minutes or so, then put them into the refrigerator for around 4 hours to really set up. All right, so our creme brulees have cooled down in the refrigerator, and they have sunken down a little bit. I probably could have filled them up a little bit more, but now it's time to do the sugar on top of them. So the first thing I wanted to do was, we're going to be running this blowtorch around there. So I'm going to take off this bit on the outside here, because that can turn into a pretty unattractive char if you don't. So next thing we're going to do is there's various sugars you can use. I'm just using regular table sugar because I'm trying to do this as basically as possible. You can also use super fine baker's sugar. I'm not talking about confectioner sugar. It looks just like regular granulated sugar, except it's a teeny bit finer, and it's really made for dusting on top of something. Some feel it works better for this. I really don't, so I don't really use it. You can also use brown sugar if you like. It gives a different taste. It's a little bit harder to work with, but you can use that too. There's a few reasons with the brown sugar being a little bit harder is it's a little bit clumpier, so you want to get a light brown sugar, and you want to get a nice even layer on there. And with the sugar, it's odd, but this is actually easier with more sugar rather than less, because you're trying to get just the sugar caramelized and molten, and not heat up the creme brulee underneath it. So if you have like between 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 inch on top, that works best. So I'm going to go with like just a tablespoon here and go all across the top, making sure to get it all the way into the edges, and then smooth it off a little bit here. So there we go. That was just like a basic tablespoonful or so, something like that. Then next we're going to have to use some sort of heat to melt this. There are some people who do this under the broiler in the oven. I've never really had a lot of success with that, because first of all, my oven is the type that totally shuts off when you open the door. So every time you can't open it and look at it. And it's a little bit harder to monitor, so I don't really do it for that reason. Plus, it's the broiler and things happen super quick and you can't see them as well. So I prefer using a torch. Several types of torches you can get. You can get the fancier, sort of smaller, short, stubby ones that are a little bit prettier looking. I don't use those because I use a blowtorch all the time. I have like plumbing repairs to do around the house, that kind of thing. It's good for that. Plus, I like that I can just go to the hardware store and get another can of this anytime I want. Any hardware store is going to have this. The little specialized one, I might have to go around to a few places. So when you're using the blowtorch, be aware that this is propane gas, but it's actually going to come out hotter than your propane stove, quite a bit hotter, because it has these little holes around the edge here. And what those holes do is the gas comes out and it makes like a Venturi effect, and it's sucking in the air there. And so you're getting this heavy duty air propane mix that oxidizes, i.e. burns, a lot better because of all that air injected into it. So that means it's quite a bit hotter. So you have to be careful with this. Also, a word regarding your countertop. If you have a Formica countertop, you cannot do this directly on the Formica countertop. You have a good chance of heating up the Formica and bubbling it, or even if there's no apparent damage to the Formica, you can weaken the glue underneath and get delamination from the substrate if you do that. So if you have a tile countertop, that's okay. Even if you had a stone countertop, I still would probably protect it because you could get some spalling on it, and that is quite expensive to repair. That's part of why I put in these countertops, is because this tile is indestructible, and that's why you see it on bathroom floors that are 100 years or more old, still intact and working. So I've got my thing, my blowtorch head attached here. I've got my little spark igniter. And what I'm going to do is try to keep the torch about 8 inches or so off the surface of the sugar. And I'm going to go around and wave the torch off, spin. Bring the torch on, wave the torch off, spin. Okay? So it takes a little practice, and you have to think about it a little bit beforehand, especially if it's your first go at this, as to where you're going to wave the torch off to. So if you're doing this on this kind of counter, nothing's going to kill this. But if you're doing this on a Formica or a stone counter or something like this, you might want to invert a jelly roll pan and do it all on top of that to protect the surface a little bit more. But what's going to happen is the sugar is going to start to make little caramelized BBs almost instantly all around the surface here. And eventually it's going to turn into a few big globs. Once those globs are sort of sufficient, I'm going to take the torch off and roll it around to swirl those globs so they cover the entire surface, because we want the entire surface glassy. So let's get our torch. So if I light it like this, I'm going to melt my cabinet. Okay, so let's come off here. And there's another thing. It's this sort of light blue flame that's kind of hard to see, so you have to be aware of that as well. The other thing is your flame will change when you tip this. So here we go. And you can see those BBs forming there. And I'm actually directing sort of more at the edges here. You have to be a little bit fearless with this. Okay. And there we go. That's one. You might have noticed that I'm trying to grip with 2 fingers down here at the bottom. Down at the bottom, not up here. Up here, this is hot enough to burn me. Down here, this is actually still cold because the creme brulee is acting like an insulator. So that's why you grip it down here and go like that. Stevie, no guest appearance. But this is pretty much the result you want. And just to give you an idea, this is probably also like, this is just about set up. That's how quickly the sugar sets up. So that's about where you want it. Let's try another one with a different sugar. See what happens. Okay, here I've got one with brown sugar on it. Get our torch all lit up. Like I said, I feel like the brown sugar is kind of a little more difficult. For one thing, it's brown, so it's harder to judge the color. And there we go. See, like there's this spot, I think I burned that in the middle there. But I don't know that it really looks all that great. I'm sure it's going to taste fine, but that's why I'm sort of more a fan of the regular sugar, which like I think that looks nice. I'm not sure this looks all that great. So let's try it with the super fine sugar. Okay, so here's the ultra fine Baker's cane sugar. It's a little bit finer version of the regular white sugar. So I've got that on there, and we will get our torch going. Okay. All right, so this is our ultra fine, and this is our regular. I don't know, it's about the same. I felt like maybe possibly it melted a teeny bit faster, but that's about it. So when you are done, if you don't already know, I've turned off the gas here, but this thing is still connected and it still has the valve in the can open. Never leave your torch like this because you're relying upon the tightness of the threads to keep the gas in there, and it really doesn't. I can put this away just like this and come back a week later, I'll still have gas in the can. If I come back a month later, there will be a substantial loss from this. So always when you're done, unscrew it, and you're going to hear a pop when this comes off. And that's the valve inside the can sealing. So for you welders out there, this is sort of the same thing as not turning off the gas at the torch and thinking that's good. You have to turn off the gas at the cylinder. Or, you know, if you're TIG welding, you don't just come off the pedal and walk away and go home. You have to turn off the cylinder. So there's your manly man tip for you right there. Also, this is obviously going to be hot, so set it down on your inverted jelly roll pan or whatever you decide to do. When you're done, so this has been sitting here now for, I don't know, 5 minutes. You want to hear it? See how that's hard? So that then when you go into it, you will have that nice crunch of sort of the shattered sugar combined with the creaminess of the creme brulee. So you should absolutely hear that. If you don't, then you probably didn't have enough sugar on. So I don't know, put on some more and go again. Thanks again for joining me on Rupert Cooks. I felt a need to do this episode after all the antagonism I got over the creme caramel episode that I did before this one. So sorry for 2 custard episodes in a row, but I didn't really realize there was so much creme caramel antagonism out in the world, but I sure found out. Apparently a lot of the disagreement was with how eggy creme caramel can taste, which is a little bit funny because it kind of actually has less egg in it than the creme brulee. Creme caramel has 5 eggs and 1 yolk. Creme brulee has 6 whole eggs. So, you know, the yolk is what you're tasting there, but the creme brulee does not taste eggy at all compared to the creme caramel. I think just because of the way you're poaching it. or you're cooking it. But at any rate, I really appreciate you joining me. I hope you try this one out. I hope the blowtorch thing doesn't scare you too much, because it's really not a big deal. I find it less scary than a broiler, but as I've mentioned in the past, the broiler is the scariest thing in the world to me for kitchen implements, because it's where recipes tend to go to die sometime. So I just don't use it. But have fun with it. Don't be scared. It's a good excuse to buy a new tool, and maybe you can get some plumbing work done at the end too. So I will see you again on the next one. Thanks again. Bye-bye.